Hello and welcome to Supposedly Fun. My name is Greg and I am here today to talk about some book releases that are coming up pretty soon. I don't really know what got me on this path. Usually I only do videos about upcoming book releases in the beginning of the year and in the middle of the year. But I was looking at book reviews for upcoming books and things to get excited about, and there were a bunch that really jumped out to me and seemed exciting, and therefore I wanted to talk to you about them because maybe you'll be excited about them as well. Now, through a quirk of timing, I'm actually filming this on Thursday, May 2nd, but I am going to hold this video and post it while I'm gone on vacation. So by the time you watch this video, one of these books will have been released. Just a quirk of timing. I'm still including it because at the time I'm filming this, it's still coming out, and I haven't really heard anybody talking about it, so I figured it would be a good book to maybe drum up some excitement about and see if other people are as interested in it as I am. I will have affiliate links for all of these books in the description box down below. If you are interested in any of them and want to purchase it through bookshop.org, use that link and maybe it'll help me out. Otherwise, always support your local independent bookstore. You know I am a huge fan of doing that, and you could also request these books at your local library if they aren't already going to be getting a copy. That is always a good thing to do. And before we get into the list proper, I already talked about Fire Exit by Morgan Talty in my video about upcoming books that I'm excited about that I did back in January, but I want to mention it again because now I'm actually reading a copy of it, and so far I'm really enjoying it. And if you liked Night of the Living Rez as much as I did, this will be a big one for you. It will be releasing on June 4th from Tin House, and I would just recommend pre-ordering it because, as I said, I'm about halfway through at this point, and I have really been liking it a great deal. And again, if you liked The Night of the Living Rez, I think this would be something that is right up your street. So, pre-ordering also, just as a quick PSA, is a good thing to do because it lets publishers know how many copies of books they should print or if they need to reprint any, and it lets bookstores know what you're interested in so they know what to stock. That is the deal with that. So let's jump in. I believe there are 11 books on this list. I forgot to count before I started, and I'm not going to stop to do it now. Let's just dive into the list and get started on that. And I will be talking about these in the order in which they will be released. So the first book I'm going to talk about is the one that will be released on May 7th. So it will already be out by the time you see this video. And again, in that case, you can order it down below, but all the others would be pre-order links. So it's Cinema Love by Jiaming Tang. Here is what it says about this book online. For over 30 years, Old Second and Bao Mei have cobbled together a meager existence in New York City's Chinatown. But unlike other couples, these two share an unusual past. In rural Fuzhou, before they emigrated, they frequented the Workers' Cinema, a theater where gay men cruised for love. While classic war films played, Old Second and his countrymen found intimacy in the screening rooms. In the box office, Bao Mei sold movie tickets to closeted men guarding their secrets and finding her own happiness with the projectionist. But when Old Second's passion for his male lover is revealed, a series of haunting events unfold, propelling these characters toward an uncertain future in America. Spanning 3 timelines, post-socialist China, 1980s Chinatown, and contemporary New York, Cinema Love is an exceptional and moving, according to Alice Hoffman, epic about men and women who find themselves in forbidden relationships, the weight of secrets, and the way memory forever haunts the present. It is going to be published by Dutton. Again, the release date is May 7th. So when I'm filming this, it's in the future. As you watch this, it will have been released. And by the way, beautiful cover, it has to be said. So I am really looking forward to this. I think it sounds fascinating. And I will say a lot of the books that I stumbled on that seemed really interesting definitely have queer story elements. And if you know me, you know that's something that really captures my attention very quickly. I think this book sounds really interesting. And it also got a great review in Kirkus, and I tend to trust Kirkus's reviews. So you can imagine I am really looking forward to tracking down a copy of this book when I get home from my vacation. So let's move on to the next book, which actually ties in to a particular interest I have. I don't own any, but I would love to, which are those old like lesbian pulp books. Anyway, the book is called Perfume and Pain by Anna Dorn, and here is the description. A controversial LA author attempts to revive her career and finally find true love in this hilarious nod to 1950s lesbian pulp fiction. I believe The Price of Salt has been lumped in with lesbian pulp fiction, but it doesn't feel like it fits in that genre, but it's the only one that I've really read. Price of Salt, of course, was the Patricia Highsmith book that was adapted into the movie Carol, and these days is more commonly referred to as Carol. But anyway, let's get back to Perfume and Pain. Having recently moved both herself and her formidable perfume bottle collection into a tiny bungalow in Los Angeles, mid-list author Astrid Dahl finds herself back in the Zoom writers group she co-founded, Sapphic Scribes, after an incident that leaves her and her career lightly canceled. But she temporarily forgets all that by throwing herself into a few sexy distractions, like Ivy, a grad student researching 1950s lesbian pulp who smells like metallic orchids, or her new neighbor Penelope, who smells like patchouli. Penelope, a painter living off Urban Outfitters' settlement money, immediately ingratiates herself in Astrid's life, bonding with her best friends and family just as Astrid and Ivy begin to date in person. Astrid feels judged and threatened by Penelope, a responsible older vegan, but also finds her irresistibly sexy. When Astrid receives an unexpected call from her agent with the news that actress and influencer Kat Gold wants to adapt her previous novel for TV, Astrid finally has a chance to resurrect her waning career. But the pressure causes Astrid's worst vice to rear its head: the Patricia Highsmith, a blend of Adderall, alcohol, and cigarettes, and results in blackouts and a disturbing series of events. Unapologetically feminine yet ribald, steamy yet hilarious, Anna Dorn has crafted an exquisite homage to lesbian pulp of yore, reclaiming it for our internet and celebrity-obsessed world. With notes of Southern California citrus and sulky smokiness, Perfume and Pain is a satirical romp through Hollywood and lesbian melodrama. And I think all of that sounds fascinating. I think it's funny because I read a review of this. I didn't actually look at the description of it. It's funny that I mentioned Patricia Highsmith as a author who had been lumped in with lesbian pulp novels, and then she kind of came up in the description of it. So this is going to be published on May 21st by Simon & Schuster, and if money were no object, I would absolutely be collecting those old pulp novels because they have really hilarious covers. I don't have an example that I can show you, but I do have something kind of similar. Let me grab it off of my shelf. They kind of look like this, but the lesbian pulp ones obviously have more lesbian flair than that. But anyway, and in case these things matter to you, let me also mention that Cinema Love is going to be released in hardcover, and Perfume and Pain will be released in paperback. So, you know, if cost is a consideration, there you go. I will try to remember to mention that with the other books that I will be talking about as well. So the next book I want to talk about is I Hope This Finds You Well by Natalie Sue. This one is also coming in hardcover. It will be released on May 21st by William Morrow and Company. May 21st is going to be a big day for a bunch of these, I believe. Let's jump into the description of this one. This kind of gets away from the queer stories, if I remember correctly, but it's a kind of workplace drama. Let's go. As far as Jolene is concerned, her interactions with her colleagues should start and end with her official duties as an admin for Super Shops, Inc. Unfortunately, her irritating, incompetent coworkers don't seem to understand the importance of boundaries. Her secret to survival? She vents her grievances in petty email postscripts, then changes the text color to white so no one can see them. That is until one of her secret messages is exposed. Her punishment, sensitivity training, led by the suspiciously friendly HR guy, Cliff, and rigorous email restrictions. When an IT mix-up grants her access to her entire department's private emails and DMs, Jolene knows she should report it. But who could resist reading what her coworkers are really saying? And when she discovers layoffs are coming, she realizes this might just be the key to saving her job. The plan is simple: gain her boss's favor, convince HR she's Super Shop's material, and beat out the competition. But as Jolene is drawn further into her coworkers' private worlds and realizes they are each keeping secrets, her carefully constructed walls begin to crumble, especially around Cliff, who she definitely cannot have feelings for. Eventually, she will need to decide if she's ready to leave the comfort of her cubicle, even if that means coming clean to her colleagues. Crackling with laugh-out-loud dialogue and relatable observations, I Hope This Finds You Well is a fresh and surprisingly tender comedy about loneliness and love beyond our computer screens. This sparkling debut novel will open your heart to everyday eccentricities of work culture and the undeniable human connections that come along with it. I feel like if you've ever worked in an office, even if only briefly, that could be a fun book. It reminds me a little bit of Then We Came to the End by, I want to say, Joshua Ferris. I could be wrong about that, but Then We Came to the End. It's a book about office culture that was genuinely funny. And I'm hoping that this would kind of be the same thing. Again, that will be released on May 21st in hardcover. Let's go to the next one, which is called In Tongues by Thomas Grattan, also published May 21st by MCD, and this will also be in hardcover. Here's the description. A young gay man upends the lives of a powerful art world couple in this steamy novel of self-discovery. It's 2001, and 24-year-old Gordon, handsome, sensitive, and eager for direction, takes a bus from Minnesota to New York City because it's the only place for a young gay man to go. As he begins to settle into the city's punishing rhythm, he gets a job walking rich Manhattanites' dogs. But it isn't until he stumbles into the West Village brownstones of two of his clients, the powerful gallery owners Philip and Nicola, that Gordon learns how much the world has hidden from him and what he's capable of doing in order to get it for himself. A lush, heart-quickening novel about family and art, sex and class, and the terror of self-discovery, Thomas Grattan's In Tongues chronicles Gordon's perilous pursuit of belonging from the Midwest to New York, and later to Europe and Mexico City. As he floats further into Philip and Nicola's exclusive universe, and his lines blur between employee, muse, lover, and mentor, Gordon's charm, manipulation, and growing ambition escape his own control, in turn threatening to unravel the lives and lies of those around him. Anchored by winsome lyricism, glinting intellect, and a main character whose yearnings and mistakes come to feel like our own, In Tongues crackles with fierce longing and pointed emotion, further confirming Grattan as a rare chronicler of young adulthood's joys and devastations. And one of the things that sounded really interesting to me about this one is that in the review from Kirkus, it talks about this protagonist, Gordon, as someone who starts out making a lot of mistakes and having a very messy life in the way that many young people do when they are first starting out, and being pretty selfish and self-absorbed. But it mentioned that he goes on a journey, and he's not the same person at the end of the book as he was at the beginning, which kind of marks the arc of growing up that so many of us experience and struggle with. And I feel like a lot of characters are treated as sort of one note, especially over time. And the idea of someone going from being kind of messy to maybe approaching figuring out their life is a journey I could get behind, because I've really struggled with books about people, like especially white men, who cannot get their lives together. That is a storyline that I have gotten incredibly bored with and struggled with. So the idea that this one has something of a progression really appealed to me, and it sounds great. So again, that will be out on May 21st in hardcover. Let us go on to the next one, which is called Allow Me to Introduce Myself by Anyi Nwabineli. Anuri Chinasa has had enough, and really, who can blame her? She was the unwilling star of her stepmother's social media empire before momfluencers were even a thing. For years, Ophelia documented every birthday, every skinned knee, every milestone and meltdown for millions of strangers to fawn over and pick apart. Now, at 25, Anuri is desperate to put her way too public past behind her and start living on her own terms. But it's not going so great. She can barely walk down the street without someone recognize her, and the fraught relationship with her father has fallen apart. Then there's her PhD application, still unfinished, and her drinking problem, still going strong. When every detail of her childhood was so intensely scrutinized, how can she tell what she really wants? Still, Ophelia is never far away and has made it clear she won't go down without a fight. With Noelle, Anuri's 5-year-old half-sister, now being forced down the same path, Anuri discovers she has a new mission in life: to take back control of the family narrative. Through biting wit and heartfelt introspection, this darkly humorous story dives deep into the deceptive allure of a picture-perfect existence, the overexposure of children in social media, and the excitement of self-discovery. So this will be out May 28th published by Graydon House, and it will be published in hardcover. Sounds fascinating. Again, it feels like a story about someone going from a period where their life is really messy and they're trying to figure things out to maybe approaching something more, quote unquote adult. And that sounds fascinating. And it seems like it touches on a lot of very, again, quote unquote, current and topical issues like exposure to social media and things like that, and living your life online that could be handled in a really interesting way. So I thought it sounded very interesting, and hopefully you do as well. Now, let us go to the next one, which is called Housemates by Emma Copley Eisenberg. This will be out on May 28th, and it is going to be published by Hogarth Press. Hogarth publishes a lot of books that I have been a fan of. I'm going to get rid of the cover of this book just for a second so I can point at A Place for Us by Fatima Farheen Mirza. That was published by Hogarth, and big fan of that book. Anyway, I will bring back the dust jacket of Housemates, and let's dive into the description of this book. Two young housemates embark on a road trip to discover themselves in this sparkling novel of love, friendship, and chosen family in a fractured America by the award-winning author of The Third Rainbow Girl. When Bernie replies to Leah's ad for a new housemate in Philadelphia, the two begin an intense and defiantly uncategorizable friendship based on a mutual belief in their art and one another. Both aspire to capture the world around them, Leah through her writing, Bernie through her photography. After Bernie's former photography professor, the renowned yet tarnished Daniel Dunn, dies and leaves her a complicated inheritance, Leah volunteers to accompany Bernie to his home in rural Pennsylvania, turning the jaunt into a road trip with an ambitious mission to document America through words and photographs. What ensues is a journey into the heart of the nation, bringing the housemates into conversation with people from all walks of life, the absurd dreamers and failures of this wide, wide country, as they try to make sense of the times they are living in. Along the way, Leah and Bernie discover what it means to chase their own ideas and dreams and to embrace what they are capable of, both romantically and artistically. Warm and insightful, Housemates is a story of youth and freedom, a glorious celebration of queer life and how art and love might save us all. I mean, do I even need to tell you why I'm interested in that one, especially since it has a sort of complicated relationship at its heart? A lot of these books are kind of about that new adulthood phase where you're not a teenager anymore, but you're still early on in your adult career and just finding out where you belong in the world and figuring out how the world really operates now that you're behind the shade of being a teenager or a child and you are able to figure things out on your own. I think it sounds interesting and just kind of fascinating. So this will be out in hardcover again, May 28th from Hogarth Press. It sounds fascinating to me. Let's go to the next one, which is called The Safekeep by Yael van der Wooden. It will be released on May 28th by Avid Reader Press, which is a division of Simon & Schuster. It will be released in hardcover. Let's jump into the description. This has a gorgeous cover, though. Can we have a moment for the pears? Just absolutely beautiful. I am not even a huge fan of pears. I mean, I like them fine, but I don't love them. But I love art with pears. I don't know if that makes sense, but anyway, I love the cover. I was immediately drawn to it for that. And then I read the description and it really sounded interesting to me. So here we go. An exhilarating, twisted tale of desire, suspicion, and obsession between two women staying in the same house in the Dutch countryside during the summer of 1961. A powerful exploration of the legacy of World War II and the darker parts of our collective past. It is 1961, and the rural Dutch province of, I'm not going to attempt to pronounce that province, is quiet. Bomb craters have been filled, buildings reconstructed, and the war is truly over. Living alone in her late mother's country home, Isabel knows her life is as it should be, led by routine and discipline. But all is upended when her brother Louis brings his graceless new girlfriend Eva, leaving her at Isabel's doorstep as a guest to stay for the season. Eva is Isabel's antithesis. She sleeps late, walks loudly through the house, and touches things she shouldn't. In response, Isabel develops a fury-fueled obsession, and when things start disappearing around the house, a spoon, a knife, a bowl, Isabel's suspicions begin to spiral. In the sweltering peak of summer, Isabel's paranoia gives way to infatuation, leading to a discovery that unravels all Isabel has ever known. The war might not be well and truly over after all, and neither Eva nor the house in which they live are what they seem. Mysterious, sophisticated, sensual, and infused with intrigue, atmosphere, and sex, The Safekeep is a brilliantly plotted and provocative debut novel you won't soon forget. Again, I feel like I don't even need to really explain why that seems so interesting to me. It just does. The cover really captured my attention, but then the description made me say, I would like to read that. So again, this will be published on May 28th in hardcover from Avid Reader Press, which is a division of Simon & Schuster. It just sounds so good, and hopefully you will agree. We have 4 more books to cover. Next is something a little bit different. It's Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. Now, if you know me, and if you follow along, you know I am a bit of a sucker for a cinnamon bun book. And when I say a cinnamon bun book, I love a romance, usually a queer one. This is not that, but that's fine. And it helps me navigate the world, manage my own anxiety. And sometimes I need a break from reading serious books, so it helps me stay focused. I used to read a lot of mysteries and thrillers, but I've really fallen off of that. So romance is sort of my go-to genre for that. And again, I usually stick with queer romance, but this just sounded kind of fun. Hopefully you will agree. This will be coming out in paperback on June 4th from Dell. Here's the description. A hot one-night stand and an unexpected pregnancy lead a young woman to someone she can depend on, from the viral TikTok author of Next of Kin and Next to You. I do admit viral TikTok author immediately gave me pause, but I'm not going to be judgmental about anything like that. You know, glass houses shouldn't throw stones. Here we go. Winifred, Win McNulty, has always been wildly independent and not one to be coddled for her limb difference. Win has spent most of her life trying to prove that she can do it all on her own. With some minor adjustments, she's done just fine. Hooking up at a costume party with the incredibly charming Beau changes everything. Win finds herself pregnant and decides to keep the baby. While Beau is surprisingly elated to step up to the plate, Win is unsure of whether she can handle this new challenge. Together, Win and Beau decide to get to know one another as friends and nothing more while they embark on this parenting journey together. But as they should both know by now, life rarely goes according to plan. Now, the Kirkus review for this really stressed that there's an adorable connection and a strong connection between them, and that was what they really liked about this book. I believe they gave it a starred review, and that is what I like when I go into a romance. And I just love the idea of different type of people, like her having a limb difference, and he has a prosthetic leg, I believe. So it just sounded really interesting, and I love a sweet story about people having this great connection and finding their way to love. So, you know, this sounds like the perfect thing for me to read when I am looking for something that is going to help me calm down. And as we careen toward the election in the United States, that becomes more and more necessary for me. I've already been so stressed and anxious in 2024 that it has been making it difficult for me to read a whole lot, and we don't need to get into it. You're not my therapist. But books like this have been helping me, and I'm just going to put it out there. If you are a fan of romance, or if you, like me, rely on things to help bring you back to center, this could be a good one. Now let's go to the next book, which is The Sisters K by Maureen Soon. It will be released in hardcover on June 11th from Unnamed Press. Here is the description of this book. By the way, if you are wondering if this is a spin on the brothers Karamazov, congratulations. After years of estrangement, Mina, Sarah, and Esther have been forced together again. Called to their father's deathbed, the sisters must confront a man little changed by the fact of his mortality. Vicious and pathetic in equal measure, Eugene Kim wants one thing: to see which of his children will abject themselves for his favor, and more importantly, his fortune. From their childhood in California to the depths of a mid-Atlantic winter, the solitary sisters Kim must face a brutal past colliding with their present. Grasping at their broken bonds of sisterhood, they will do what is necessary to escape the tragedy of their circumstances, whatever the cost. For Mina, the eldest, the money would be recompense for her father's cruelty. A practicing lawyer with an icy pragmatism, she dreams of a family of her own and sets to work on securing her inheritance. For Sarah, a gifted and embittered academic who wields her intelligence like a weapon, confronting her father again forces her to reckon with the desperation of her present life. It is left to the youngest, directionless and loving Esther, to care for their father in her lonely quest to do right by everyone. A fortune pales in comparison to the prospect of finally reuniting with her sisters. With a legacy of violence haunting their lives, the sisters dare to imagine a better future even as their father's poison courses through their blood. A contemporary reimagining of Dostoevsky's dark classic, The Brothers Karamazov, Maureen Soon's brilliant debut is a vivid and visceral exploration of rage, shame, and the betrayals of intimacy. Another great review in Kirkus, and if you know me, you know I love a complicated family story, and this is absolutely that. I have never actually read The Brothers Karamazov. I've never actually read Dostoevsky. I don't think it would be a prerequisite for this book, but it just sounds really fascinating to me. It's right up my alley, given that I love books about complicated families and all of that. So there you go. Now let's talk about The Glassmaker by Tracy Chevalier. This will be coming out in hardcover on June 18th from Viking. I've never read a Tracy Chevalier book, and I have thought about it in the past. She has a lot of very well-known books. She wrote The Girl with the Pearl Earring, and I'm blanking. Let me just see if I can open her page, and I can tell you. She's written The Girl with the Pearl Earring, Fallen Angels, The Virgin Blue, The Lady and the Unicorn, Burning Bright. You have probably heard of at least some of these books. There's also At the Edge of the Orchard, A Single Thread, Remarkable Creatures. She's been around, and I just haven't read any of her books. And to be honest, I haven't felt too compelled, but the description of this one sounds really fascinating, and I couldn't leave it out for that. Here we go. From the best-selling historical novelist, a rich, transporting story that follows a family of glassmakers from the height of Renaissance-era Italy to the present day. It is 1486, and Venice is a wealthy, opulent center for trade. Orsola Rosso is the oldest daughter in a family of glassblowers on Murano, the island revered for the craft. As a woman, she is not meant to work with glass, but she has the hands for it, the heart, and a vision. When her father dies, she teaches herself to make glass beads in secret, and her work supports the Rosso family fortunes. Skipping like a stone through the centuries, in a Venice where time moves as slowly as molten glass, we follow Orsola and her family as they live through creative triumph and heartbreaking loss, from a plague devastating Venice to continental soldiers stripping its palazzos bare, from the domination of Murano and its maestros to the transformation of the city of trade into a city of tourists. In every era, the Rosso women ensure that their work and their bonds endure. Chevalier is a master of her own craft, and The Glassmaker is as inventive as it is spellbinding. A mesmerizing portrait of a woman, a family, and a city as everlasting as their glass. And I think what really captured me about this is the fact that it is a story about an independent-minded woman sort of bucking the traditions of her family to make her own way and pursue the things that she wants to do. I love that. I love glassblowing. I took a glassblowing class with Joel a couple of years back. It was wonderful, absolutely great. We have items that we made out in the house and we treasure them. So there's that, but also I just found the idea of a family staying still through history. History continues happening around them, but they age very slowly. Something about that just sounded really interesting, because a lot of books tell the story of generation after generation of a family as it sort of moves through time, but something about the idea of a family sort of staying still through all that periods of history really sounded fascinating. So I kept it on my list. We have one more book. It's Hombrecito by Santiago Jose Sanchez. This will be coming out in hardcover on June 25th from Riverhead Books. And this one sounds fascinating. A novel by a brilliant new voice, Hombrecito is a queer coming-of-age story. I mean, right there, I'm on the hook. about a young immigrant's complex relationships with his mother and his motherland. In this groundbreaking novel, Santiago Jose Sanchez plunges us into the heart of one boy's life. His mother takes him and his brother from Colombia to America, leaving their absent father behind, but essentially disappearing herself once they get to Miami. In America, his mother works as a waitress when she was once a doctor. The boy embraces his queer identity as wholeheartedly as he embraces his new home, but not without a sense of loss. As he grows, his relationship with his mother becomes fraught, tangled, a love so intense that it borders on vivid pain, but is also the axis around which his every decision revolves. She may have once forgotten him, disappeared, but she is always on his mind. He moves to New York, ducking in and out of bed with different men as he seeks out something, someone, to make him whole again. When his mother invites him to visit family in Colombia with her, he returns to the country as a young man, trying to find peace with his father, with his homeland, with who he's become since he's left, and with who his mother is. Finally, we come to know her and her secrets, her complex ambivalence and fierce love. Hombrecito, Little Man, is a moving portrait of a young person between cultures, between different ideas of himself. From an extraordinary new talent, this is a story told with startling beauty and intensity, a story for anyone searching for home, searching for a way to love. I don't think I need to explain why that sounds so fascinating to me, but it really does. It sounds beautiful. It got a great review in Kirkus again. So I feel like I'm all in on this one, which again will be released on June 25th, right at the end of Pride Month, from Riverhead Books, and it will be in hardcover. Surprise! I lied to you. That's actually not the last book. I have 3 more now. The benefit, or the curse, I guess, of filming this ahead before I went on vacation is that in the week since I filmed this, I found 3 more books that I wanted to talk to you about. So I am adding them in here. And let's just get right to it. The first one is The Last Man in Paradise by Syed M. Masood. This is in a weird sort of limbo space, and I'll explain that in a second. Before I get to that, I want to explain why I'm excited about this book, The Bad Muslim Discount, which is Syed M. Masood's last novel, and I really enjoyed this book. I loved it a great deal. It was one of my favorite reads from that year. I thought it was funny and a good balance of humorous and serious, and I had been looking forward to seeing what Syed M. Masood would do next in novel form. So The Last Man in Paradise immediately caught my attention when I saw it on NetGalley, actually. And the weird limbo thing that I referred to is that this book appears that it is only going to be released on ebook, which is difficult for me because I don't really read ebooks. I don't really like ebooks. I don't do Kindle because I don't like Amazon. So if I don't get the copy that I requested through NetGalley, I don't really know what I'm going to do. I guess I do have like the Nook app somewhere. I just don't use it because I don't do ebooks. But I would really like to see what Syed M. Masood does next. I think there will be an audio available as well. This is going to be released from Eighth Note Press, which is a new imprint started by the parent company of TikTok to sort of leverage the success that TikTok has had in selling books, which I guess is why it's leaning in a digital direction rather than print. It's a little disappointing, but I'm really glad that Syed M. Masood has a new book coming out, and I am excited to try to catch up to it. I think when it is released, which will be on June 4th, I'm probably going to see if I can get the audio somewhere, because as long as there's an audio available, that sort of saves me from having to read an ebook, which, again, I just kind of don't really like to do. Anyway, here is the premise of this book. A darkly humorous and emotional homecoming story about a young man reconciling with his estranged family and finding his way back to love, from the author of The Bad Muslim Discount. A decade ago, Azan, a rebellious teenager with dreams of becoming an actor, was exiled from Redding, California to a religious academy in Egypt by his imam father. His crime? Getting caught kissing Madison, the girlfriend he isn't supposed to have. But while letting his family believe he is studying to become a preacher, Azan ditched school and embarked on an acting career. Given that he has minimal contact and non-existent plans to return home, he figured no one would ever know. Now, however, Azan's grandfather has a dying wish. He wants to see his grandson one last time. In order to maintain the story he's told his family for years, Azan decides to become a fake imam. Playing at being a religious leader, he finds a community in Redding on the brink of a scandal involving his family. It'll be the most challenging role of his life. Navigating his new identity and old relationships, Azan reunites with Madison, connects with old friends, and uncovers a shocking truth about his family history that threatens to expose his father as a fraud. It turns out Azan isn't the only one pretending to be something he isn't. Before he can finish weighing the consequences of exposing his father or protecting him, an untimely death shakes Azan's priorities. He is forced to grapple with his religion, future, and family in a way that is sure to break hearts, but might heat a few along the way. And it sort of plays with familiar dynamics from this one because you have a protagonist, the male protagonist, who has mostly grown up in America and is feeling a bit of dissonance with his family about his ties to their religion and their culture and all of that. And it's done in a really humorous way. And so I'm looking forward to this book. The next one is We Burn Daylight by Brett Anthony Johnston. This will be released on July 30th. And this was actually recommended to me. And it just sounded amazing. I don't really know how I missed it. So here's the description. The publisher, by the way, is Random House. An epic novel of star-crossed lovers set in a doomsday cult on the Texas prairie that asks, what would you sacrifice for the person you love? I mean, are you already hooked? I was already hooked. Waco, Texas, 1993. People from all walks of life have arrived to follow the Lamb's gospel, signing over savings and pensions, selling their homes and shedding marriages. They've come here to worship at the feet of a former landscaper turned prophet who is preparing for the end times with a staggering cachet of weapons. Jay's mother is one of the newest and most devout followers, though Jay herself has suspicions about the Lamb's methods and his motives. Roy is the youngest son of the local sheriff, a 14-year-old boy with a heart of gold and a nose for trouble, who falls for Jay without knowing of her mother's attachment to the man who is currently making his father's life hell. The two teenagers are drawn to each other immediately and completely, but their love may have dire consequences for their families. Sounding a little Romeo and Juliet, but set in a doomsday cult, which is a really interesting twist on that story. The Lamb has plans for them all, especially Jay, and his preaching and scheming move them closer and closer to unthinkable violence, and Roy risks everything to save Jay. Based on true events that unfolded 30 years ago during the siege of the Branch Davidian compound, Brett Anthony Johnston's We Burn Daylight is an unforgettable love story, a heart-pounding literary page-turner, and a profound exploration of faith, family, and what it means to be truly saved. I mean, it sounds very dramatic, interesting. You know, I have read a couple of books that were set in a cult, and I've had very iffy results with them. But this sounds like it could be a good one. So I'm interested. Again, that will be released in hardcover on July 30th from Random House. The final book that I wanted to add to this list is a new Elizabeth Strout book. It's called Tell Me Everything. Now, the tricky thing about this book is that I have fallen behind on my Elizabeth Strout reading. I have read Olive Kitteridge, and I've read The Burgess Boys, and that is it. In the meantime, Elizabeth Strout has created this literary universe of characters. There has been a sequel to Olive Kitteridge, and she has written, I think, 4 Lucy Barton books at this point. And the reason I think a lot of people are going to be excited about this book is that this is where all of those worlds collide. So I feel like I have some catching up to do before I read this book, which will be released on August 13th from Random House as well. But I have been wanting to catch up to Elizabeth Strout for a long time, so maybe this is the kick in the pants I need to do it. And this will be released in hardcover, by the way. Here's the description. With her extraordinary capacity for radical empathy, which is something the Boston Globe said in this blurb, and which immediately caught my attention because I love empathetic books. With her extraordinary capacity for radical empathy, remarkable insight into the human condition, and silences that contain multitudes, Elizabeth Strout returns to the town of Crosby, Maine, and to her beloved cast of characters, Lucy Barton, Olive Kitteridge, Bob Burgess, and more, as they deal with a shocking crime in their midst, fall in love, and yet choose to be apart, and grapple with the question, as Lucy Barton puts it, what does anyone's life mean? It's autumn in Maine, and the town lawyer Bob Burgess has become enmeshed in an unfolding murder investigation, defending a lonely, isolated man accused of killing his mother. He has also fallen into a deep and abiding friendship with the acclaimed writer Lucy Barton, who lives down the road in a house by the sea with her ex-husband William. Together, Lucy and Bob go on walks and talk about their lives, their fears and regrets, and what might have been. Lucy, meanwhile, is finally introduced to the iconic Olive Kitteridge, now living in a retirement community on the edge of town. They spend afternoons together in Olive's apartment telling each other stories. Stories about people they have known. Unrecorded lives, Olive calls them. Reanimating them and, in the process, imbuing their lives with meaning. Brimming with empathy and pathos, Tell Me Everything is Elizabeth Strout operating at the height of her powers, illuminating the ways in which our relationships keep us afloat. As Lucy says, love comes in so many different forms, but it is always love. And again, that will be coming out on August 13th in hardcover. Elizabeth Strout fans, get ready. Now I'll go back to the original video for the wrap-up. Thank you. I would love to hear which of these books you are interested in. If there are any books that are coming out that you are really fascinated by and would like to read or want to put on my radar, let me know in the comment section down below. So this will sort of take us to June, July, like through the beginning of July. And then I can pick up from there and do another video about books coming in the latter part of 2024. I think that actually sounds perfect. So let me know what you think about all of these books in the comment section down below. As always, I really appreciate your time, and I will be back. Until next time, happy reading.